Good evening, happy Thursday night, and welcome to the Qualk Show. We are quacking all about divorce tonight, the dreaded D word,
The
and
bad D.
the bad D. Well, to me, it's all bad D, but
That's
that's
true.
that's the story for another show. I want to introduce the panel. Stephanie's taking the night off tonight, a well-deserved vacation from the show. We've got Hallie running it tonight. Thank you, Hallie. We got yours truly, and we have a very special guest here with us tonight. My partner, my fiance, I guess I should start saying, my fiance's bestie, Jessica, is in the house.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
Love it. So, Hallie, before we go any further, how can people talk to us during the show? How do they get a hold of us on the chat lines and stuff so that they can ask questions and be a part of the show tonight?
I have posted this on our YouTube page, or it's on our YouTube page. The link is on our Facebook, so people can see us and you can chat. On the side, we already have some people chatting with us.
Yay! Hi, chatters! We're so happy you're there.
Exactly. And of course, you can always Facebook post what? Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. That's what I was trying to say. We're on all the platforms at the Qualk Show.
And you can also poke us if you'd like, if that's where you're going with that. I mean, we're always open to a good poke. What the hell is poking for anyways? That's
Old school.
yeah, that's a topic for another show as well. So how was everybody's week? Hallie, let's start with you. How is pregnancy going?
Pregnancy is going. It's going. The nausea's getting a little bit more under control, and the exhaustion's just starting to set in. So yay!
Yay! We're really sorry for you, Brooke, and all you're having to go through right now.
Poor thing.
Is there anything else going on in your neck of the woods? Is it snowing there? Just nonstop snowing in BC. It just won't stop snowing.
Yeah, we had snow the other day. We never get snow in March, and we had snow on Monday. They actually canceled school. It was ridiculous because they canceled school. I mean, these poor kids are going to be going to school until like June. But now it's just back to rain.
Love it. And Jess, you are currently immersed in school, and you're still making time for us tonight. How is everything going with that?
I am in my 4th term. I'm going into the hospital.
Love it. Because you need to be a patient, or you're going to
No, I've done that. No, I'm going into hospital to take care of sick individuals for my 4th term clinical, so it's exciting. Super exciting.
So you're actually kind of doing your, they call it clinical, practicum, same thing?
It's my clinical, and then I shift into preceptorship. So yeah, clinical practicum and then
preceptorship. Yeah. Sounds very hard to do. Well, that's awesome. That is so exciting, and you're going to be great at it. You're such a caring individual, and it's going to be fun to hear all your stories about your preceptorship.
I'm also a little bit dark and twisted, which I think you need for to be.
You definitely need that.
Yeah.
You definitely need that. So what we're talking about tonight is divorce, and in specific, because we're kind of a parenting talk show, as you know, we're talking about co-parenting during divorce and how to make things work and all of that kind of stuff. I myself have been divorced, thankfully. But there were no kids involved, thank God. There were cats, but I kept the cats, so maybe that's a show for another day as well. Hallie, unfortunately, has been through a divorce and is co-parenting a child successfully, and Jessica has been through a divorce and is co-parenting a child successfully as well. But it doesn't always start out that way, and there's things that you need to do along the way to get there. You ladies are nodding your heads. Yeah, exactly.
It was so amazing. My divorce went so well. Yeah, it was beautiful.
My breakup was shitty, but my divorce was actually pretty awesome. We just showed up, signed the papers. I was like, bye, bitch.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. You didn't have to see her again every other weekend, every week.
That is true. So I was looking and researching for the show, of course, and I mean, this is a stat that we kind of all know, but just to see it in writing once again, 50% of all North American children will witness the divorce of their parents. So, I mean, that's a huge number. And the follow-up number was really interesting to me as well, is that almost half of those, so half of that 50%, will witness the breakup of a second marriage as well. So those are staggering statistics, ladies, as far as I'm concerned. So the first thing that I want to talk about tonight is why you guys think that the divorce stats are as high as they are. Do we pick the wrong people nowadays? Does nobody stick at it anymore? Are we a throwaway society? What do you think, Jess?
I think that there's this romanticized ideal of what a relationship should be like, and as soon as, and like, just speaking for myself, as soon as those lovey kind of feelings go away and I'm not getting my needs met in like a romantic, like fantasy way, I'm like, this is not working, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to shift my thinking about what I wanted out of a relationship, because I'm not doing this again. Like, Anthony's with me until he dies. Or I kill him.
Whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, like
we don't care about his feelings. This is not about him. No, I'm just
kidding. With me. Like,
yeah.
No, I make the decisions. Maybe I will get divorced. No, I just kidding. No. Yeah, no, it's. I had to look at what I wanted, and I was trying to force Garth to be something that he wasn't capable of doing, and I think that I never accepted him as who he was, and that's why it didn't work. And I had to look at it in that way, because he was miserable too. Yeah. He was miserable because I was trying to force him to meet my idea of what I wanted in a partner.
So, do you think that you went into your marriage trying to fix him or trying to mold him into something else when you knew that maybe it wasn't going to work out, but you thought you could change him? That age-old thing?
I didn't know myself at all. I was 23. I was coming out of, I was coming out of treatment for drug addiction. Yeah. And I needed something different than what I had, because I had been through a really bad relationship. So I looked for the exact opposite of what the man I was with before. And I found it in Garth. So he met my needs in the beginning. So it was perfect. Then as I grew up as a person and started getting my own idea of who I was, he wasn't fitting my mold anymore. So I grew up a little bit. And
So then, Hallie, what do you think is the difference between, say, the olden days when people got together when they were 18 or 19 or younger, and everybody's going to grow, everybody's going to change and go through different cycles in their life and different things where maybe you don't match up perfectly at the time. So is there any way to make it through those cycles together, or do you just always get to a point through growth that you're not going to, be able to stay with that other person? What do you think?
I mean, my grandparents were married until my grandpa passed away a few months ago. So, I mean, they were married forever, and divorce wasn't an option. Yeah. So I don't know if it's just the time that they grew up in. I mean, because they went through some tough times in their relationships that I think a lot of people nowadays would have just been like, you know what, this isn't working. You're going to be happier doing this. I'm going to be happier doing this. But that's just not how it was. So I don't know. It's so hard, because with my relationship, it was kind of we moved really fast, and I don't think we each knew who we were at the time. Yeah. So we just got together and then kind of started going apart. Yeah. But my grandparents got together and fairly young. They were married, and my mom was born 8 months later. So, things went a little fast.
Yeah. Sounds like Nicole and I. We got together, and Taya was born 7 months later.
Wait, you're not the father?
I'm not the father, but I am Nicole's daddy, if you know what I mean.
So, I mean, I don't know.
What, 2 months pregnant?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's...
The cat's out of the bag now.
But, yeah, I don't know if it's that we throw things away. If we're just like, instant gratification. I'm not happy. I need to be happy. Or... I don't know. There's so many different things that pull into it.
When is it time to divorce? Like, let's say you've been at each other's throat for 6 months, but there's still something tangible there, or you have kids involved, or whatever the case may be. When is it time to say this isn't worth working at anymore? I'm gonna throw it out there.
I am not one to say that you should stay together for the kids, only for the kids, because you're just showing them what a loveless relationship looks like, and that's terrible.
Well, then they're ready for it when they grow up. I think that's
they're like, oh, this is normal. No, this is the bar real low for you, kid.
Exactly. We're setting the bar real low.
I can speak to that. I can speak to that growing up in a relationship where my mom and my dad hated each other. Like my dad loved my mom hated my dad. My dad cheated on my mom. Like, you know, like but they stayed together for the kids. And the amount of turmoil that I had growing up contributed to me getting loaded all the time. And I was in so much, I'm still in therapy for the traumatic shit that went on, in my life as a teenager.
Yeah, on our show you can swear.
And, you know, and not to say that like, they did the best they could, but it was very traumatic. The amount of
most kids don't ever want their parents to divorce.
No.
Did you used to think when you were little, I hope they don't get divorced, or were you like, God, I wish they would just split up because this is horrific?
I had no concept of anything outside of feeling that it was my fault. Right. And it was like, I've done something wrong. And the blame was shifted onto me a lot of the time because I was the oldest and the only one around after my dad had left. And so there was no other way for me to look at it. And I could, looking back on it, I wish they would have divorced.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the moment,
it would have caused less trauma over time if they had it divorced.
It would have been so much easier. Because as soon as they did when I was 18, it was like... Right.
But then you've already suffered through all the crap.
Yeah, right. So I didn't want to do that to Logan. And I was starting to notice that I was getting really frustrated with Garth for not being who I wanted him to be. And it was the same, different circumstances. I'm not my mom, but it was the same as my mom wanting my dad to be different due to like a mental illness kind of thing right?
Yeah.
It just didn't work. And I love Garth. I still love Garth.
Yeah. And especially because you have a child together, right? Like,
he's an amazing person.
And he's given you the thing that you probably love most in your life.
Yeah, and he's a great father. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to treat him the way that my mom treated my dad.
Yeah. So, Hallie, one of the stats that I've always been marveled by, well, it's not really a stat, but it was on Oprah years and years and years ago, and it's something that I kind of try to live by, and I don't remember the guy's name, don't remember anything about him, but he was some relationship expert, and he came out, and Oprah said, you know, so you've been happily married for 50 years, and he stopped her, and he said, oh, no. He said, I've been happily married for about 22 of those years. The other, I'm stuck at math, the other 28 or whatever the case may be, have been work. So how do you know that it's the point that you're supposed to give up or that there's just nothing to save?
I mean, I think a lot of relationships, they can be salvaged I think it's when they end when both parties give up.
I agree.
If one person is still in it, that a lot of times is enough to keep the other person going until they kind of fall off and the next person picks up. I think relationships are very much waves. And so if you're in it and there's and it's not mentally or physically abusive, of course, any kind of abuse is not okay. Yeah. You know, those are just terrible things. But if there's enough good, I think you can push through. It's just a lot of people tend to be so negative and they're like, this is hard. You know, like you said, everything gets romanticized. They're like, oh, I want the pretty woman marriage. I want the Christian Grey marriage, whatever.
I was like, that's a good one. No.
It's a sweet love story with a lot of weird stuff.
Because he has billions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And what's that
I want a Christian Grey marriage.
If he lived in a trailer park, it would be like a Dateline this week.
Yeah.
That's true.
So one of the things, especially because we have a lot of queer spectrum parents that watch our show, is the difference between divorce where children are concerned between a heterosexual relationship, as the courts recognize it, and a homosexual relationship or a queer relationship. So, for example, the courts haven't necessarily caught up in all places with society's thinking that we came in this together, this is both of our child. Mm-hmm. So being that they often will not recognize the non-bio parent as having any rights, and I've seen this or heard these horror stories from a lot of other queer parents, especially if you're not on the birth certificate. What are some of some of the things that people need to do to protect themselves with their child in the event that this relationship should ever end for them? Hallie, was your ex on the birth certificate?
Yep, okay. She was on the birth certificate from day one. I mean, we had to do a second parent adoption because at the time marriage wasn't legal in Oregon. And so we had to do a second parent adoption to have her added. But we did that from day one just as a precaution. I mean, if she ever wanted to travel with Casey, I mean, yes, we all have the same last name. And yes, thankfully, we're both women. So the likelihood of us getting stopped and questioned of the biology of our child is much less than, you know, two men trying to travel somewhere with a child.
With a young child,
With a young child.
I laugh only because society is so against it, right? Like, so again,
ridiculous.
It's just stacked against gay men for sure.
Absolutely. So, I mean, but that was something that we kept a copy of her adoption paperwork in her diaper bag. It was there until we stopped carrying a diaper bag because just in case my wife was a little bit, or my ex-wife was a little neurotic, but she wanted that just in case something happened, she could prove that she was her parent.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's huge, you know, going into this with Nicole. I mean, it was something that I thought about because, I mean, I'm 41 and I'm in a 1.5-year relationship. So I don't have a lot of, luck in the love department. I've often said if I played professional sports, I'd get traded every 2 years or so, but you know, and obviously I've become more secure in our relationship and the fact that she knows that I am Taya's other mom as we go along. But I've had, in the beginning, friends of mine that were lawyers say, you need to protect yourself because it's all love and roses right now. But let me tell you, I've been through this. And when it gets sour, you don't have a leg to stand on. So you're obviously the bio mom, Jessica. Did you find that it was stacked in your favor when you went to court, or did you find that it was fairly even between you and Garth as far as?
Well, now that's when my real like bulldog type of personality comes out. We didn't have to go to court because I did all of the legal, like everything. I wrote everything up and I negotiated everything with him.
Yeah, I can see why you and Nicole are besties.
Yeah, like
Nicole just had me a stack of paperwork.
Yeah, like it got to the point where like I know a bit of a dick move, but I put a lien on the house so he couldn't sell it until he signed the papers.
Fair enough. I mean, you do what you got to do, right?
I had to because it was like I needed to make sure that I had enough to be taking care of Logan and that everything was equal. He was afraid that I was going to take him away from him, and he wouldn't listen to me. But like, I would never do that to my son.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's just the type of person I am. But yeah, no, it was in my favor, definitely, because I'm the mom, and it still is. And I don't think that's necessarily even fair because, right, he's the dad, and he can take just as good care of him as I can. But I have like an attachment to him as the
one who grew him in your body.
Yeah, like oh my god, my son needs me. He's dying without me, and like I do have that weird feeling when he's not with me. So I want him with me all the time, and I'm having to kind of take my step back from that and be like, he needs to spend more time with his dad.
Yeah. So how do you handle the time when Logan is out of the house? Like, is it, you know, sometimes Hallie always misses Casey by the end of the week, but the first couple days you're like, bye.
Oh my God. Yeah. Cause we have a 2-2-5 schedule. So at the end of my 5th day with her, where I've had her solid 5 days by myself, I'm just like, time for you to go to school yet? Like, I love you dearly, but oh Lord.
So how do you handle it? Do you miss him like crazy? Do you view it as a little bit of kind of like a break? Because Steph and I have joked with Hallie that like we'll divorce just so we can get a little break from our kid, like once a week, like just go away, you know, for once a week. What do you think, Jess?
I try to switch everything into like a positive thing, and I'm just grateful that I have people that I can rely on because I see single mothers, and I'm in full-time nursing school, and there's absolutely no way that I would be able to do it without the support that I have. And we fight over him, like not fight, but like I want to have him now, and I want to have him now, right? And I look at it in the way that like he is so loved, and it is so amazing because he's got such a dynamic family. And I just look at the positives of it, and it's hard, but then I'm like, I have to like sit back and like relax, and I can study, and like it's good. Yeah.
Do you think it's any easier on kids of today's generation to come from a divorced family because 50% of their friends are also from divorced families? Is some of the stigma of and I don't think divorce is ever easy on the kids, but a lot of times when I was growing up, eons and eons ago, there was only a handful of us kids that had divorced parents. And so, you know, you felt like a pariah. Is it a little bit easier on kids nowadays, or is it all to do with the emotional ties with the parents and whether you can co-parent positively together?
I think that divorces is, I mean, I think it is not socially frowned upon anymore. I mean, you get divorced, it's like, okay, it's another piece of paperwork. Like, it's really not that big of a deal.
You farted under the covers, so we're going to get divorced. Yeah.
But I think divorce is as easy as the parents make it on the kid. And it all depends on your ability to grow up. I mean, even if, hopefully your relationship can be friends, but even if you hate that person as a person, if they're a good parent, you have to make it work. I mean, and people are like, oh, I just have to deal with him or her until they're 18. Yeah, no, because you're gonna have to go to the same wedding. You're gonna have to go to the same grandkid's birthday party. Like,
true,
you're going to be together forever. So get over yourself.
Exactly. So when a divorce is particularly contentious, and I mean, let's say there has been beating, cheating, the things that make you really angry and bitter, and you can't seem to get along at all. How do you protect your kids from the anger and resentment that you feel towards your ex-spouse? So I know you guys are both in good places now, but we had some chuckles at the beginning of the show about it wasn't always like that. So how did you guys keep your kids out of it from the beginning? And we can all say, well, the best interest of the child, but we're human and we have those feelings. So how did you control that and not bring it out around your kids? Jess, you're smiling. I want to hear what you're thinking.
I didn't. I wasn't able to because I'm human. And the one thing I told myself about being a parent was that I will own up to my mistakes with my child no matter what. And I did. Like, I got angry at Garth in front of him, and Logan had cried, and it was actually, that was the turning point where I was like, this cannot go on.
Yeah.
And I need you to...
Logan, you're so cute.
I couldn't go on anymore because he loved Logan and Logan loves him and he's a good person and I loved him, so I had to change what I was doing because it affected Logan in such a negative way. So it was a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. So yeah.
What about you, Hallie? I don't really know. I don't know how contentious I think whenever any relationship ends, there's going to be a period of not loving the other person.
Oh yeah. There was definitely some not loving moments. Well, and it also didn't help the timing because she told me she wanted a divorce 3 weeks before I had my surrogate twins. So timing wasn't really awesome right there. Yeah. I mean, I was already at the peak of a twin pregnancy, so that was awesome.
Yeah. And when we say peak, it's twins. That peak is high.
But one thing that I said was, we're going to counseling. Her and I were going to counseling, and Casey was going, because we had a family counselor that also worked with kids. So Jess and I went to counseling. My ex's wife is Jess. We went to counseling, and then
you guys get along really well for being exes. You guys are doing such a great job.
I know, right? But Casey went to counseling for a long time. Not that there was any problems, but we just wanted to have that solid base level so that if something came up later on, Casey already had this established relationship with this person, and our counselor, Ellen, could kind of give us tabs on what was going on and how Casey was dealing with it. And also she helped Jess and I deal with our emotions because we still went to counseling together. Just instead of marriage counseling, it was divorce counseling.
Yeah.
Super smart. That's awesome.
Yeah. Very smart. And so obviously, I mean, in any kind of situation, I think that I would, if somebody asked me, I'd always recommend therapy because sometimes you just need to talk to somebody once, and you just need to talk to somebody who's not involved in the situation, who's not emotionally, invested in what you're going through, and makes it a little bit easier to get it off your chest. So how do you stay consistent with your ex when it comes to kids, with their rules, their discipline, their schedule? So, I mean, how do you, Hallie, you're laughing.
Well, Jess and I have always been different parents. So Casey, things are different in each house. I mean, Jess and I both agree on a solid core level of how Casey was going to be raised. So that didn't really change. But Jess was definitely and still is the more pushover of a parent, and she is the soft parent. And I
don't know what that's like.
I know. I'm sure you have no idea. But
no idea.
Casey happened when Casey was 4, so she's going to be 7 next week. So it's been a couple years, and it's just a matter of establishing the rules at Mama's house are, I mean, it's all the same base layer, but she just gets away with more at Jess's house. But Jess also is really good about, Casey has been terrible about playing sick. And so she'll text me and say, okay, this is what Casey's doing. I don't know. Like, do you really think she's sick? Should we try to make her go to school?
Yeah.
So, you know, we do, thankfully we're past that angry stage, and we talk and we get together all the time. I mean, we get together every month or so and talk about our lives and Casey and how things are going to keep that consistency.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? How do you keep, like, let's say Logan's bedtime is 7 o'clock all week at your house, and then it's 9 or 10 o'clock when he goes to Dad's house. Like, how do you just kind of release that, or is it something you try to get to a point where you can at least agree on some sort of time to keep it consistent?
I am the less consistent person. So I'm not even consistent with myself. And Garth is very rigid and consistent in everything. He had an alarm clock on his phone. It's bedtime now. And so I had to get on board with him. And I talked to him about it, and I was like, well, what do you do? And he was like, well, I have this alarm, and I did it for a week. I don't do it anymore, but I have consistently put him to bed, and we're on the same page with sugar and with food, and awesome.
And screen time.
Yeah.
Logan and we also have his stepmom involved too, and she's raised a son, so she has her input into it. And then Anthony, which he wants to be really involved as well. So Anthony has taken more of the disciplinary. Can you hold on a second? Disciplinary and consistent role when he's around. And I have a really hard time disciplining him.
Now, talking about when you're bringing in new relationships, Hallie, you are seeing somebody new. Obviously, Jess, I know that you've been with Anthony for a while. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a two-part question. Number one, how do you get that started? And when the other person isn't necessarily on board with having someone new around their kids. And then secondly, how much communication goes on? You said Anthony's become more of the disciplinarian type thing. So is that okay with your ex? Does he have a problem with another man disciplining his son? No. Okay.
Garth is really very, just the way that he's created, he's really practical, and he understands it's a really good thing. And him and Anthony get along. They so I mean, I'm lucky. Like, I'm extraordinarily lucky. I had a problem. I was extremely jealous because I was like, who is this woman? She's gonna be touching my kid. Don't come near him. I want to know who she is. And like, I created this craziness in my brain about her. And I had to step back, because jealousy is not a feeling that I know. And then when it happened, it hit me, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. So I had to evaluate. He still grabs for my boobs.
I mean, I can't really blame the kid. Right?
I did the same thing. So
I had to evaluate what was happening and get rid of the jealousy, because I was like, that's not going to be good for Logan, and I'm not going to create problems for him in his life with people who are going to love him. And that was the bottom line of it.
Amazing. So basically, it just comes to putting the best needs of your child first. You were nodding your head, Hallie, and I know that your ex-wife has just recently remarried. Did you experience some of the same things that Jess was talking about?
I had the jealousy shortly after the divorce, and we had to kind of set down some ground rules of nobody meets Casey, not even friends, until we've known them for 6 months, because new friends were starting to get brought into our lives.
New friends.
Well, friends.
But
a lot of new people were coming into Casey's life, and she gets really attached to people. And so I wanted to have full control of the situation. And so as much control as I could have, I put a 6-month rule on myself as well as her. Nobody met Casey for 6 months. And then we would proceed after that. Because then you kind of get to know somebody, whether you're dating them or they're just a work friend.
For sure.
You know if it's going to continue.
For sure. No, I think that's awesome. It's been such an eye-opening conversation, and I know that a lot of people, unfortunately, are either dealing with this or are going to deal with this, and I hope that they can find some sort of information that helps during the show today, or at least knowing that you're not alone, that there's people that have gone through it and successfully co-parenting with their ex-spouse, and that there is always hope. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Did we have any comments on the chat line, Hallie?
We had, the chat room was blowing up. Like people were like, oh, hey, I'm so glad I could catch you guys. I mean, we were just kind of mainly saying hello, but yeah, no, there's
well, hello to everybody in the chat room. So glad you're there. Make sure you tune in every Thursday, 5 p.m. Thank you, Jess, for being on the show. You were such a light on the show, and so good at conversation, and just open, telling us your story. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it tonight. Logan, I'm happy you're here as well. And we're going to have a little family chat after we go off live here. So for everybody else, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week as we talk about kicking bad habits, whether it's smoking, drinking, food. Jess is like, I want to come back next week. That's what we're talking about next week. Tune in. We'll see everybody next week. And remember, there is always something to quack about. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.